be shifting regularly, and the board is sold in lots of different bundles that include things like the required 5V 4A USB-C power supply that I already have. So let's open this up. I think it's fairly straightforward. We just get into the box at the end like that. Here it is, it's in a bag, and oh, it's sealed, so we will bring in, guess who? Mr. Scissors will let us into the bag like this, hopefully. Has that worked? I think it has. And here we have our Orange Pi 5, and it looks very nice indeed. At the heart of the board, we spy its Rockchip RK3588S system on a chip, which, as I mentioned in the introduction, is a cut-down or cost-optimized version of the RK3588. Both are octa-core chips with 4 ARM Cortex-A76 cores clocked at up to 2.4 GHz and 4 ARM Cortex-A55 cores clocked at up to 1.8 GHz. And both chips also have an ARM Mali G610MC4 GPU and a 6 TOPS neural processing unit, or NPU. So, other than the fact that the two versions of the chip have a different package as we can see, what is the difference? Well, it all comes down to peripherals, and without covering all of the details, although I'll give you links to all of the details in the video description, the important things for us here are that whilst a full RK3588 supports 2 HDMI outputs, 1 HDMI input and PCIe 3.0, the RK3588S only supports 1 HDMI output, does not have an HDMI input and is PCIe 2.0 only. And we'll test out the implications of this later in the video. Anyway, focusing our attention back on the Orange Pi 5, flanking the top and the side of the SoC, we have our RAM, which is low power DDR4, and here 4 GB. Turning to the first long edge, we first get a USB-C connector for powering the board with a 5V 4A supply, and next to that a 3.5mm audio input-output jack. Next we've got a full-size HDMI 2.1 connector that supports up to 8K at 60 frames a second. Next along, we then get a Type-C USB connector. This is USB 3.1 and also offers DisplayPort 1.4 over USB functionality. So it is possible to connect two monitors to the Orange Pi 5, one to HDMI and one to USB-C. And talking of visual stuff, moving along, we're offered the first of two LCD panel connectors, and the other one is just underneath. You can probably see it on the underside of the board. And we've also got here the first of 3 MIPI CSI or camera serial interface connectors. Rotating to the first short edge, next we find a Type A USB 2 connector, although the interface for this port is shared with the previous Type-C connector. In the middle, we then get Gigabit Ethernet, and then we find 2 Type A USB ports, which according to the specifications for the board are USB 3 on the top and USB 2 beneath, although they're both here coloured blue, so maybe the specification is wrong and they are both USB 3. Spinning 90 on our second long edge, we find some indicator LEDs, a UART connector and a 26-pin GPIO connector. And repeating our rotation trick for a final time, we discover on the second short edge a microSD card slot, an on-off button and an onboard microphone, which is a really nice touch. Back on the top of the board, there are also masked ROM and recovery buttons to be used if we really get into trouble, as well as another camera connector. However, what we don't find is a wireless module, and so there's no onboard Wi-Fi or Bluetooth on the Orange Pi 5. This said, if we flick the board over, it shouldn't mind too much. There we are, it didn't. What we find underneath are the second LCD connector. We mentioned this earlier, it's poking out on this side of the board. And we also find a third camera connector and an M.2 slot. And this is M-keyed for supporting an NVMe SSD. However, Orange Pi have said that they'll release a custom M-keyed M.2 wireless module to fit this port. Meanwhile, some users online have also reported success using a standard B-keyed wireless module in an M.2 M-key to B-key adapter. However, this is getting a bit messy, and even using an NVMe SSD in this slot is going to be trickier than it might be because of the orientation that way rather than that way. We'll have to use a 2242 NVMe drive to fit on the board and be secured using the mounting hole, using hardware that isn't actually here. It's going to be more difficult than that to use a longer, say 2280 drive, the more standard size of drive, although that's exactly what I'm going to do later in the video because I want to run an NVMe test. So there we are. This is the Orange Pi 5, a very nice RK3588S single board computer that sells for around half the money that you pay for some other RK3588S SBCs. That's going to be a good achievement by Orange Pi. And so now it must be time to find some operating systems and to test out the board's performance.